Okay, so good morning everyone. Bon dia a tothom. Moltes gràcies per l'organització, al govern d'Andorra. Thank you very much to the Andorran government for the organization of this event. And today, early in the morning, 9:30, we're going to talk about sustainability, the relationship between gastronomy and tourism, especially on mountain destinations, and also the sustainable consumption of food. And for these, we have three great representatives from different nations. We also have to apologize Mr. Philippe Berto, the responsible of tourism of the region of Occitanie, who is sick, COVID again. So we send our warm regards to him at home. So today, as I said, we have representatives from Italy, from Greece, from Andorra and Catalonia as well, let's say. Of course, the Andorran gastronomy for sure very influenced by the Catalonian gastronomy. And I think it's quite important, especially in these times of turmoil, of uncertainty, to go back to local, to go back to the real thing, to the authentic food and authentic elaborations and recipes from the different destinations, and also in mountainous destinations in which food also has an importance and a tradition and a relationship to how things were centuries. Oh yeah. I got so used to using the face mask. So we're going to start first with Michele. Michele, he's the CEO of at Slow Life, Slow Tourism, Slow Travel. He's the Slow Food Travel Director since 2019. Previously, he also was the program coordinator at the Balkans and Turkey. And also, prior to that, he was program coordinator at Asia Pacific and Eastern Europe, so long trajectory and at Slow Food, and also Fondazione Terra Madre, and he has a master's degree in NGOs and development by London School of Economics. Michele.
Thank you very much for the introduction. It's a very long. I mean, I don't have that many titles. I'm very excited, actually, to be in presence again. I got used to this sort of two-dimension Zoom kind of meeting, unfortunately, and it's one of the few conferences I'm doing in presence again, and I'm really, really excited about it. So, first of all, of course, thank you for the UNWTO and the government of Andorra for the invitation. I'm very happy to be here. I actually don't come from the tourist sector. I'm actually representing an organization that works with food, and we have been doing so for over 30 years. Slow Food is a worldwide grassroots organization, and we believe that actually quality and sustainability are strongly interlinked and actually sometimes coincide. We unite people from all over the world that, just a brief introduction about Slow Food. We bring together people that have the same goal, to build sustainable food systems across the globe on local, then national, and then global scales, and ensure, of course, that everybody has access to what we say, good, clean, and fair food. Now, well, we are pretty large. We act on a vast series of activities, from grassroots projects to, of course, education and inspiring citizens to change their food habits, to enter, in a way, the matrix and see the complexity of food and how food actually impacts the world we live in. More than a fourth of world global greenhouse gases emission is related to food production and distribution. So in no other ways than when we eat, we can exercise our choice as citizens and as consumers, because we eat 3 times a day. So 3 times a day we can exercise how we want the world to go, in what direction. What is good, clean, and fair? Just in a nutshell, of course, fair relates to the importance of having fair relations within the food systems. We have been, Slow Food generates in the 80s when more and more corporations were taking over the global food systems, creating a handful of corporations controlling more than 90% of the seeds worldwide, and also a large variety of the foods we eat. So this generates, of course, problems, because we are not that free as consumers. And most important, producers often are not paid enough for their work and they give up. We've seen that especially in mountain areas, isn't it? Because if a farmer in mountain areas tries to compete on prices, he's lost or she's lost in just a few years, because mountains have no other choice but to rely on quality, right? Clean, of course, relates to the environment, to our health. Sometimes we forget that industrial food production relies on a very handful of food varieties and items. I don't know how often you think you eat corn, but if you are in a European environment, you eat corn more than once a day, because corn is included in a lot of processed food products that we eat from breakfast to dinner. And if you are from the United States, you are basically made of corn, because you eat corn every day, nearly in all the moments of the day. So, but good, what is I think is interesting for our conversation today is the definition of good. From our perspective, good depends on culture. If you think about, we are named slow food, right? And slow food is exactly in a way the opposite of fast food. And what is the definition of fast food? It's not McDonald's, it's not Starbucks. Sometimes these companies can even be remarkable in their effort towards sustainability. A fast food is a food that is always the same. Whether I'm in Andorra, I'm in Milan, I'm in New York, or in Beijing, Big Mac will always taste a Big Mac. The best definition I have for fast food is food you find in airports. They're always the same. But the problem is that, actually, the relevance is that, from our perspective, what matters is that what I like may be different from what V likes, or from what Jordi likes. Because we come from different cultures, and we need to defend their cultural diversity if we want to utterly defend our food biodiversity and ultimately quality. So, identifying and supporting unique and not replicable food traditions has a clear implication for tourism too. Because if I'm protecting, which is what we do as slow food, unique and not replicable food ingredients and traditions around the world, we're also basically preserving items that can, if adequately, let's say, processed, be transformed into unique and not replicable tourism experiences as well. As I said, Slow Food is a worldwide organization, and we're based basically on a network of like-minded supporters that we have all over the world that, in a way, have a deep insight into what is the world, what is the cultural, food, heritage, and identity of a given destination. So this is how actually we got into tourism, because tourism organizations started to ask us to identify that heritage and build strategies to safeguard it. We have built projects over the years to catalog the foods items that are at risk of extinctions, not recipes. That's so important. We need to go beyond recipes when we talk, also when we talk food into tourism. Jordi is a chef. He knows very well that if he cannot find the right ingredients, he will never be able to perform a dish in the right way. So ultimately, a recipe can be just folklore. But ingredients that I used really tell us if a food identity is still in place, is still in good health or not. We do also have projects to safeguard these food items that are called slow food presidia, where we basically try to work with producers to safeguard and upgrade their production so to become recognized and established as a high-quality food items. And we have, of course, more than 2,000 groups around the world. This matters on tourism again, as I said, because I always bring this example that is quite extreme. Altin and Anton Prenga are two chefs that belong to our network and who trained in Italy as immigrants. They arrived actually as very poor migrants in the early 90s in Italy. And then they established themselves as a chef around Austria and Italy. Then they decided to let's say, to engage in a very interesting initiative to go back to the countryside in Albania in 2012 and open an agritourism, honestly, in the middle of nowhere, in the countryside, near the mountain area of Albania, 1 hour from Tirana. At that time, in 2012, Albania was a disaster in terms of gastronomy in restaurants. It was all about, let's say, international menu, Caesar salads, the usual suspects. And Albania is a country that has a communist background, and therefore, much of their heritage has been cancelled, and there was this rush to be westernized, and therefore, all that was rural was just relating to a poor past that nobody wants to deal with. Instead, Altin and Anton Prenga built the restaurants precisely to restore the pride on their gastronomic heritage, and they start using local ingredients, engage with local farmers to buy their ingredients, transform local let's say, recipes with a modern touch, and the results were stunning. In about 10 years, they went from really zero to a place that has 60,000 covers a year with 35 paid staff, and over 200 farmers and related families rely largely on the income generated by that restaurant. So it's basically a machine, and we're very proud of it. And most important, he and another couple of chefs in Albania have basically contributed to what's called New Albanian Cuisine, which is a trend, and actually people now visit Albania precisely for their gastronomic heritage. Well, in 10 years, it's really a lot. This is precisely why we launched Slow Food Travel. We want basically to bridge the gap between high-quality food productions and the tourism sector. We started this project primarily for the first time in Carinthia in Austria, so in a mountain area near the Italian border. And we did so because we believe, and this I want to be also very honest with you, for us tourism is an incredible way to advocate and to build knowledge in people of how the world is changing. And to know, of course, our projects around the world. We may think, I'm going to be harsh on that, we may think that Corona was just, let's say, a phases, or that the war in Ukraine was just a phases. But the problem is that we're going through more and more crises, if more and more as climate change advances. And visiting the real life of people in rural areas, in mountain areas, is an incredible way to explain to people how the nature is changing, how the climate is changing. We launched a destination in the Upper Tanaro mountain, Upper Tanaro valleys in Piedmont. They have an amazing cuisine. But they also, 2 years ago, they have been, in 12 hours, in the summer of 2 years ago, in 12 hours they received the rainfall of 1 year. And it destroyed a lot of things. A lot of paths in nature, a lot of agricultural fields, trees of chestnuts felled. It was really a disaster. And now, if you go there, you can, of course, still enjoy the local gastronomic culture, enjoy the nature, but you will have to realize the impact of climate change. Most of the people we talk to are urban dwellers. In the urban environment, it's hard to realize how nature is changing. If you live in the countryside, like I did since 3 years ago, you see it with your own very eyes. I think the great task for tourism now is not to ignore this crisis and not to just offer leisure to escape, because people more and more want to know about it. So how do we build actually slow food travel? Sorry, going back to our projects. We believe there are 2 keys to success. And the first one is not that really much about rocket science, but it's about making sure that hotels, bed and breakfast, restaurants really use local, seasonal, traditional, and typical products in their menus and breakfast. Again, it looks very easy, but it's easy to say, not so easy to do. Building real communication between the small-scale farmers, the quality artisan farmers, and hotels and tourism businesses is very difficult. But it actually works very much. The map you have over there is from Carinthia. Again, it shows what you find in hotels in Lazachtal, in Carinthia region, where we established the first slow food travel destination. So at breakfast, you are offered with a selection of local products with a map showcasing where they are and phone numbers and contacts in case you want to go and visit or buy those products. So breakfast especially is an incredible moment where you can actually understand the local gastronomy. So does pointing out in menus where did you purchase your products from on the local level. So names of the farmers, contacts of farmers. And of course, this is also relies on making so that also farmers and people from within the food sectors are able to run successful food experiences. You see slow food as slow food, we believe that pleasure and responsibilities are strongly interlinked, as I said. And this is why for over 30 years we've been doing basically events where we bring together the understanding of the wider context, the narrative about quality of local systems, and actually tasting the products, right? So you need to taste to understand the theory. And so we gained an amazing experience in building food experiences, and we are transferring this also to farmers in all our destinations. I won't go into the level of interventions. You can download it, otherwise I will go too long in my presentation. But it actually proved it worked, especially this is the case of Carinthia, which was our study case where we started from. In that case, well, there is a number that isn't written there, but it's very important. In 2020, the arrivals in the destination and the arrivals and overnight stay in Carinthia region in 2020 was 30% higher than in 2019. Now, of course, it's not all thanks to slow food. In the 2020, everybody thought that Austria and the German-speaking world was somehow COVID-free, because this is how people sometimes tend to stereotype things. But ultimately, it really helps in bringing people to the local areas and exploring the local gastronomy. We restored completely the whole supply chains of bread, which was completely lost. So we worked with the local bakeries to start doing sourdough bread again. We worked with the University of Vienna to restore the old varieties of rye and wheat that were once cultivated in the areas, and the project also renovated the old water mills. So now the bread is from local wheat, processed locally, into sourdough bread and sold in local bakeries. And this is an experience you can do at every step. You can visit the fields, visit the water mills, and do courses to learn how to do bread. And so just now we have 15 destinations in 4 different countries, and we're working now to build other 10 in the, let's say, 1 or 2 years from now. And as some mentioned also yesterday, we don't do just destination development as such with either slow food chapters or destination marketing organizations. We also provide certain types of consultancy within wider tourism projects, such as the one we did with the Mountain Partnership. Rosa Laura also mentioned about it yesterday. We worked with the Sustainable Travel International and the government of Palau to make Palau a carbon neutral destination. This was a very interesting project, doing two things. On the one hand, insetting the emissions of Palau by encouraging local communities to produce more of local food items, restoring their food sovereignty, of course trying to restore their food sovereignty, reducing food waste, and engaging into projects that conserve coastal ecosystems that, as we know, act as carbon sinks. And on the other hand, the Sustainable Travel International is working to develop an application where you can calculate the emissions of your trip and offset the emissions that then translate into further projects to contribute to Palau's marine conservation. And so we also work in project that relates, let's say, with a tiny part within wider projects on sustainability of destinations. So thank you very much. I hope I gave enough food for discussion, maybe too much. And I didn't have the time, so I hope I didn't speak like Fidel Castro. Thank you very much.
Grazie, grazie Michele. So now we will go from Italy back to Andorra with Jordi Grau. I think he's very well known here in Andorra as the first Michelin star in the country after many years. Mr. Grau studied hospitality and culinary arts at Turisme Sant Ignasi in Barcelona. He already holds an outstanding working track and gained experience at some of the most relevant cities and restaurants in Spain and abroad. He worked with Nando Jubany, Sergio Arola, and most recently Disfrutar, Leo Ibiza, so really hot places worldwide, also tickets. And since 2019, he started his current position here as executive chef at Sports Hotel, Resorts and Spa. Jordi, sisplau.
Moltes gràcies. En primer lloc voldria agrair l'oportunitat d'estar aquí avui amb vosaltres, fent una miqueta de tot això. Quan em van donar l'oportunitat de participar avui en aquestes jornades, vaig buscar la manera de fer-ho des del meu punt de vista, des del punt de vista més culinari, i en primer lloc voldria parlar una mica d'això, de la nostra figura com a cuiners o com a xefs. En els últims 20 anys, la nostra persona, la nostra figura, s'han convertit, o sigui, han passat d'estar tancats a la cuina a passar a tenir una repercussió mediàtica bastant potent. Llavors, jo ho veig en els exemples que intento seguir i ho visc jo mateix ara mateix en les meves carns. Jo avui mateix soc un bon exemple de tot això. Els cuiners o els representants del món de la cuina s'han convertit en els grans ambaixadors d'aquesta responsabilitat de canviar la mentalitat del consumidor final, que al final és una miqueta la base de tot el que ha d'esdevenir d'ara en endavant. Perquè al final vull entendre que els establiments, els governs i una mica tot en general acaben atenent una mica les necessitats del que el món demana, ja sigui parlant o ja sigui a crits, d'acord? A partir d'aquí, com has nomenat fa un moment, i no per donar-hi més bombo del que cal, parlo una mica del que és el meu camp. El restaurant Ibaya obre a mitjans de l'any 2019 i en aquell moment és un restaurant assessorat per Francis Paniego, un xef de La Rioja. En aquell moment ell ve aquí amb tota la seva cuina, tant ell com la seva casa, la seva identitat, té moltes línies paral·leles, una mica amb Soldeu, com comentàvem fa un moment abans d'entrar. Ell ve d'un molt petit poble que oscil·la molt la població que hi ha en aquell poble, seria molt comparable a Soldeu, perquè Ezcarai és un poble de pocs habitants fixes durant l'any, que passa a l'estiu, ja que és un poble molt freqüentat de segones residències, de gent del País Basc, de gent de València, Madrid, i com parlàvem fa un moment, el poble es magnifica totalment i vas un dilluns i et pots trobar un poble i en canvi vas un dissabte d'un dia animat o d'un dia freqüentat i sembla que no. Si no t'ho diguessin, no creus que t'hagin portat al mateix lloc. Amb Soldeu passaria una mica el mateix. Si algú de vosaltres puja un dia al 15 de maig, pensareu que ha passat alguna cosa, dieu, ui, què ha passat aquí? Però en canvi si pugeu el 1 de gener o en algun d'aquests dies macos de la temporada us trobaríeu un panorama totalment extrem al contrari, d'acord? Llavors, des d'aquell moment, el que nosaltres estem intentant és agafar una mica la cuina del Francis, òbviament també nosaltres hi tenim molt a dir, no només perquè en tenim ganes, sinó perquè som els que acabem estant aquí una mica, i intentem crear cada vegada més sinergies amb tot això, i aquí us porto, per exemple, un dels primers casos, que acaba redundant, òbviament, com no, en el tema sostenibilitat. Un dels aperitius del restaurant amb els que vam començar, com que era temporada d'hivern, era una fulla de borraja, que la fèiem amb tempura i tot això. D'acord, la borraja és una verdura que d'entrada aquí no és una verdura que tingui moltíssima fama, no és una verdura molt coneguda, no tenim molta cultura de menjar aquest tipus de vegetals aquí. I no només això, sinó que aquí, com que no hi ha aquesta cultura, no la trobes, el que us deia, que el mercat acaba escoltant la demanda del client. Llavors, durant tota aquella estació vam estar tirant de proveïdors del Francis i portant-la d'allà i llavors vam acabar arribant a l'estiu i cada vegada ens costava més trobar aquesta fulla de borraja. Doncs això us pot semblar tonteria, el canvi fàcil i que acaba fent molta gent o el que sigui, hoja per hoja, podíem haver donat una fulla d'espinaca, la fas en tempura, expliques una història i tal. Doncs un dia, això sembla molt literari, però és totalment cert. Un dia passejant pel voltant de l'hotel, sortim d'allà del sol i neu i, clar, estava tots els voltants plens de matolls, plens d'ortigues, d'una herba que qui d'aquí no s'ha punxat quan ets petit o el que sigui, bueno, tots la coneixem. Doncs començant una mica amb tota aquesta feina que estem fent actualment d'introspecció d'anar al país, quines cultures hi ha, què es menjava abans, per una mica recuperar tot això i intentar que cada vegada l'storytelling que té Ibaia i la seva identitat pròpia tingui més força, que penso que al final és el que ens ha portat on a dia d'avui estem, per dir-ho d'alguna manera, ens trobem amb aquest aliment. L'ortiga aquí s'havia menjat molt en el seu moment, generalment amb tema de cremes i tot això. Bueno, total, que aquell dia la cosa va acabar una mica en el que esteu veient, perquè aquestes fotos han servit, però recuperades d'aquell dia, perquè la seqüència va ser molt maca. Ens vam posar guants per intentar no fer-nos mal, vam recol·lectar nosaltres mateixos fulles, les vam provar, les vam netejar molt bé i les vam fer amb tempura i vam veure que l'aperitiu funcionava perfectament i a la vegada havíem guanyat que teníem una història que explicar. Llavors, des d'aquell moment, nosaltres mateixos sortim a recol·lectar ortiga pel voltant de l'hotel, lluitant contra el tema que conforme va avançant la línia anual de l'any i comencem a arribar a l'hivern, nosaltres estem a una cota d'uns 1.850 metres. El primer que comencem a notar, quan sabem que el fred arriba, no només ho sabem perquè les vaques ja baixen de les muntanyes, sinó perquè comencem a no trobar ortiga a la nostra zona. Llavors hem de començar a baixar, començo a enviar a la gent, doncs vinga, nois, avui en camp, vinga, i ja quan estan a Sant Julià ja se m'enfaden i em diuen que no. Llavors ja haig de començar a parlar amb proveïdors que ja s'han convertit en amics, que em porten pèsol del Maresme o alguna cosa així, i ens l'acaben portant d'allà. Però aquest és un dels nostres exemples, d'acord? Aquí tenim un altre molt bon exemple. A mi m'encantaria, vull dir, nosaltres estem a Andorra i la nostra intenció és total i absolutament de treballar cada vegada més amb gent d'aquí del país i cada vegada que se'ns presenta l'oportunitat o se'ns presenta algú davant que té ganes de fer coses o que té un producte, som els primers que el lluitem com el que més, però a vegades sorgeixen coses molt maques i la proximitat acaba sent la Seu d'Urgell. Fa un temps, per un tema de proveïdors, un tema d'haver-te de buscar la vida en quant a producte, acabem coneixent aquesta casa. Una casa superpetita, molt maques, que la porta el Jeroni, que al Majuba, a la Seu d'Urgell. Això que esteu veient aquí, aquesta façana, és on anem a buscar ara setmanalment la llet. Ell té un petit rebany, no sé si es diu així, d'ovelles, i a partir d'aquí nosaltres, per diferents productes làctics que fem al restaurant, aquí us n'he posat un exemple i ara us n'explico un parell més, volíem aquesta llet sí o sí. Doncs a partir d'aquí nosaltres hem començat a treballar amb aquesta persona i, clar, a la vegada ja estan havent moltes sinergies perquè ell ara vol organitzar visites, parlem molt i al final, com deies una mica fa un moment que parlàvem, també una mica li donem el nostre punt de vista des del punt de vista de restauració a nivell no model de negoci, perquè res més lluny de la nostra intenció de voler donar lliçons a ningú, però sí que si el podem ajudar a que aquesta iniciativa que té ell de fer que famílies vinguin al cap de setmana a visitar casa seva, a veure com funciona tot el circuit i tot això, doncs és fantàstic i és un plaer poder-ho fer perquè la veritat que el lloc és encantador, vull dir, això que esteu veient aquí, tot és absolutament real i tot està fet des del mòbil, han sigut coses que han sorgit en aquell moment i avui han acabat podent ajudar a aquesta presentació. El producte principal que li vam començar a treballar va ser la llet, perquè fins i tot el primer dia que vam començar a parlar amb el Jeroni, en aquell moment no tenia formatges perquè és un molt petit productor, ell i la seva història em pot anar molt bé per tot aquest tema d'avui. Ell abans tenia una empresa més gran i en un moment donat es va veure ofegat. Pagar nòmines, haig d'arribar a aquesta producció, tal, fins que un dia va dir prou, per sort per ell va poder frenar una mica abans d'hora, per una mica liquidar-ho tot, i va decidir fer-se molt més petit. A partir d'aquí, a dia d'avui, el Jeroni, ell té 2 criatures, doncs ell va munyir al matí, va munyir a la tarda, s'ho fa ell, els fills l'ajuden quan poden d'aquella manera perquè encara són petits, la seva dona també l'ajuda, a vegades vas i et trobes el sogre, vull dir, jo ja m'he trobat a tota la família allà posada, però és un negoci molt maco. A partir d'aquí, els cuiners i aquestes inquietuds que tenim, o digueu-li com vulgueu, jo un dia li començo a dir, escolta'm una cosa, tu pots fer nata d'ovella, perquè al final és una mica com se n'aprèn, vull dir, jo ni de lluny ho sé tot, però sí que sóc una mica inquiet, per dir-ho d'alguna manera. Clar, el vaig trastocar, heu d'imaginar-vos. El tio tenia tot molt clar el que feia, nata d'ovella, què m'estàs parlant? Bueno, parlem-ne. I clar, comença a mirar, i me'n recordo que la propera vegada que hi vaig anar i em vaig trobar una negativa rotunda, perquè em diu, bueno, ho he mirat i clar, m'hauria de comprar una centrifugadora, què tal, la temperatura, no sé què. Dius que clar, haig d'invertir. Dic, però què val? I em diu 300 euros. I dic, ja una mica això et serveix aquesta dada perquè et facis una idea de què estem parlant. Vull dir, una inversió que per molta gent seria ridícula, Per aquest senyor, dintre del món que s'ha muntat, tranquil·litat, d'aquell m'ho diu, els meus diners són el temps que puc passar cada dia amb els meus fills i a més faig això, és una cosa que la veritat que és admirable i és preciosa, en aquell moment això tal. Doncs bueno, suposo que perquè soc com soc, la relació va anar augmentant una mica setmana a setmana, com que vaig cada setmana a buscar això, finalment un dia arribo i s'havia comprat la màquina. Bueno, un show, i per primera vegada fa nata d'ovella i me la porta allà, mira, he fet això, i me n'ensenya allà mig tàper. Dic, bueno, provem-ho. A partir d'aquí em vaig emportar aquella nata, me'n vaig anar a l'hotel, la vaig posar a muntar, la nata muntava, de gust era una cosa increïble. Nosaltres al restaurant tenim un aperitiu que es diu una mossegada d'alta muntanya i allò seria com una mossegada d'ovella perquè era com mossegar-ne una d'elles, vull dir, un gust espectacular. I a partir d'aquí la vam passar de muntat i ara mateix estem fins i tot treballant amb mantega. I a més estic molt content perquè la propera vegada que ja hi vaig anar ja tenia un pot de mantega que ja li estava portant a no sé quina botiga de Barcelona i tot així. Així que és una cosa que la veritat m'omple d'orgull i estic molt content perquè si nosaltres podem tenir el producte que volem, si hem pogut contribuir a que això sigui així, si ens va fantàstic el producte i si a més aquesta persona, no parlem que es faci ric, però si pot guanyar la vida o serveix perquè aquest producte arribi a més llocs com ja està arribant, penso que la tasca està sent totalment rodona. A partir d'aquí us parlo també una vegada més de productes, vull dir, això no us vaig explicar una cosa que no és, perquè hem de ser molt clars. Vull dir, com us parlava de l'alçada i això, Andorra és un lloc meravellós per viure, jo no us puc dir una altra cosa perquè jo soc de fora i he triat viure aquí, o sigui, em sembla que millor publicitat que aquesta no n'hi ha, però aquí tenim un exemple. El tema de la sostenibilitat és una cosa políticament molt complicada i per nosaltres pot arribar a ser molt polèmica. Llavors, penso que els nostres granets de sorra una mica a tot això és una mica, un tema és aquest, vull dir, seguir la temporada dels aliments, no demanar coses quan no és temporada i a partir d'aquí anar com més a prop millor. Està clar que si el producte el pogués treure ben camp, doncs el combustible que gastaríem per portar-me'l seria molt inferior que si em ve de la Seu o que si em ve d'un altre lloc. A partir d'aquí sí que anem a gent de confiança, a gent que sabem que té claríssim una mica quina és la identitat que volem que tinguin i gent que d'alguna manera com a persones o com a entitat ens representen, i aquí tenim un clar exemple, vull dir, i a més porto un exemple a nivell plat també, és una mica el nostre gra de sorra tot això. Aquest pèsol ens el porta Pau Santamaria, el fill del difunt Santi de Can Faves. Aquest pèsol ve del Maresme, el tenim només quan és temporada, és un plat que posem a la carta quan el podem posar, i a partir d'aquí és un plat on el fem servir íntegrament. Allà al costat tenim una tabella oberta on veieu pèsol de diferents tamanys perquè aquesta és la realitat. Vull dir, sí que hi ha fotos a Instagram on són tots llàgrima i sí que després obres una bossa de Bonduel i també són tots iguals, però aquesta és la realitat d'un pèsol i una realitat amb la que ens toca viure. A partir d'aquí, aquest plat que veieu al costat i que actualment, per exemple, si aneu a sopar o a dinar al restaurant us podeu trobar, nosaltres fem servir el pèsol per servir el plat, però liquem la tabella també per fer-ne una bechamel que acabem amanint amb un formatge del Geroni i acabem fent aquest plat. La part de dalt del plat, a més, també sembla un plat rodó per un dia com avui. Aquestes cosetes blanques que veieu és una cosa que nosaltres en castellà li diem tuétanos vegetales, seria la part que se sol llançar tant de bròquils, de coliflor, vull dir, amb les tiges, amb cru, laminem i només amanim i aportem un toc vegetal amb una cosa que també es llença. Així que realment sí que no es pot aplicar tot, tampoc vinc aquí a dir una cosa que no és, però sí que hi ha plats on això no s'ha de fingir perquè és real com la vida misma. Aquí un exemple més i intento lligar dues coses. Nosaltres estem treballant moltíssim ara mateix i estem molt contents d'estar-ho podent fer amb la gent d'Autèntica Abelles d'aquí del país. De fet, tenen fins i tot rusc d'abelles, és una entitat que van movent els ruscos d'abelles perquè una vegada més s'han d'aclimatar a les condicions d'Andorra i les abelles a 1.800 metres tot l'any no hi poden estar, igual que no hi podem estar nosaltres, doncs les van movent tal. Aquest postre que us porto aquí al costat és un dels postres d'un dels menús del restaurant, és la torradeta tèbia amb poma, formatge i gelat de mel. Doncs la crema que hi hauria sota de la poma és un gelat. És una crema de formatge amb un formatge de Calmajuba de la Seu d'Urgell, poma de sobre, cuita, i el gelat de sobre és un gelat de mel, que és un gelat de mel del país. Clar, nosaltres també queda molt maco, i més avui en dia, si siguem clars, parlar d'aquest sostenible i que utilitzes coses d'aquí, però nosaltres també hem de ser selectius. També hi ha una cosa que és òbvia, em sembla, i tothom l'entendrà sense que l'hagi d'explicar massa, i és que gent que té un sistema o una indústria muntada, el cost d'aquest producte és menor al que després t'acabes trobant potser en un petit producte o una cosa així. Llavors, la sostenibilitat també comença per aquí, comença per aquests petits gestos. Nosaltres hem triat tenir aquesta mel, que l'anem comprant per lots, doncs mel de verset, segons l'alimentació que han tingut les abelles, mel de xicoia, mel de tal, depèn de la zona on estaven en aquell moment del país, que és una cosa molt maca també per explicar al restaurant. I ara mateix estem comprant aquests lots de mel pel gelat del restaurant, perquè ens importa molt la història que expliquem allà. Clar, també siguem realistes. Després de donar el pas a que tota la mel que s'acaba donant a tots els nostres centres sigui del país, doncs és un pas que segurament a la direcció que anem acabarà arribant, però que ja arribarà perquè és com tot acaba tenint un cost econòmic i tothom ha de ser capaç d'absorbir-lo, perquè després, també com a consumidors finals, sembla que després ens acaba fent com una mica de mal quan hem d'absorbir quins costos, i ara tots una mica ho hem viscut últimament amb el tema de les pujades de preu causades pel tema de la pandèmia, ara també ho estem visquent pel tema de la vaga de transports i una mica de tot això. I aprofito per lligar aquest tema per suggerir o per ensenyar-vos una possible imatge de com treballar amb aquests productors o amb aquesta gent del país pot, a més, crear sinergies a nivell turisme i turisme sostenible, perquè allò que us he posat allà són imatges de les activitats que oferim nosaltres. Nosaltres, com a entitat hotelera, com a hotel, oferim activitats. A l'hivern, gossos, motos de neu, sortides amb esquí, òbviament tot això. Doncs a l'estiu també tenim una carta d'activitats, sortides amb jeep per la muntanya, trekkings, tot el que vulguis. Doncs nosaltres estem valorant molt fermament, perquè la gent d'Autèntic Abelles és una cosa que ja fa, si introduïm les visites a les casetes de les abelles i una mica perquè vegin tot el circuit, a gent que pugui estar interessada en això, perquè la veritat que és una cosa increïble. Jo el dia que vaig veure com feien el pol·len, no sé si algú és consumidor o no, vaig quedar flipat i jo quasi bé m'hi dedico, vull dir, imagineu-vos algú que mai a la vida hagi tocat res que no sigui de la rama estrictament culinària, vull dir, em sembla una cosa molt xula, que pot arribar a ser molt nutritiva a nivell turisme o a nivell símbol de país i més amb la entitat que penso que nosaltres estem aquí tots intentant crear. A partir d'aquí sí que faig ara una petita menció a l'estrella Michelin. Estrella Michelin, distinció d'excel·lència i qualitat en el món de la restauració. L'aportació de la guia Michelin a la creació de llocs de treball, preservació de tradicions gastronòmiques i el turisme a zones de muntanya. A la part de la dreta us he posat un llistat d'hotels que tenen un restaurant amb una estrella Michelin. Sí que dintre d'aquest llistat us podeu trobar un restaurant àbac al ple centre de Barcelona i sí que algú podria pensar que difícilment algú anirà a Barcelona només per l'àbac, tot i que jo n'estic segur que sí. Però sí que ens trobem restaurants, no només com el nostre, que ja amb la boca tal podem dir que està en aquesta llista, sí que ens trobem restaurants com l'Hotel Echaurren, que és del Francis, que us parla que està a Escarai, l'Hotel Marquès de Rizcal, a Àlava, o per exemple l'Hotel Atrio de Toño, que estan a llocs més allunyats de tot això, que estic segur que ells es noten i nutreixen de que hi ha un turisme atret per aquest guardó, per aquesta guia, que avala una sèrie d'estàndards i que fa que la gent es mogui per anar a visitar aquests llocs. Per acabar una mica, vull parlar del que us deia abans, és a dir, penso que nosaltres com a entitats, i no només, totes les entitats acaben responent una mica a les necessitats del consumidor final. Hi ha un tant per cent elevadíssim en les últimes enquestes de consumidors finals que han dit o que diuen que s'acabarien movent segons segells de qualitat, segells sostenibles. Quan em vaig posar una mica a estudiar per preparar tot això, em vaig trobar segells que era increïble. La de pàgines que havia d'imprimir per fer-lo entre tots era una mica tot el contrari a sostenibilitat. A partir d'aquí us trobeu segells com el Green Leader de TripAdvisor, us trobeu segells com el Travel, aquest petit d'aquí baix, que és el de Booking. És a dir, cada vegada la gent està volent marcar més aquesta part de premiar quan algú està tenint actituds sostenibles com a negoci i tot això, perquè sembla ser que el consumidor final cada vegada són coses d'aquestes que mira més a l'hora de moure's. Llavors penso que estan responent a una necessitat que és col·lectiva i cada vegada hi ha més segells d'aquests. I a partir d'aquí torno a fer una petita menció al que és el meu camp en aquest aspecte, la guia Michelin. El 2021 neix una nova distinció de la guia Michelin, que és l'estrella verda. L'estrella verda és una estrella, em sembla una distinció molt maca, la veritat. És una distinció que s'aporta a establiments que d'alguna manera mostren molt o es fan molt ambaixadors, això que us deia al principi, de conductes sostenibles i tot això. Una mica el primer de tot això era el que la meva portada avui eren els germans Roca, la Fina Puigdevall i la família Puigdevall i Àngel León. Àngel León, per exemple, en aquest aspecte em sembla una persona superincreïble i estic orgullós que sigui un dels nostres ambaixadors perquè sí que és veritat que tots ens hem posat a l'aigua, sí que és veritat que a tots ens agrada un bon turbot a la brasa, però ella està buscant coses al mar, coses per poder alimentar poblacions, coses per poder-nos nutrir, coses per poder descobrir coses noves que em semblen increïbles. I a partir d'aquí em sembla fantàstic que la guia ho vulgui premiar. No només això, sinó que a més, si ens hi fixem en aquesta llista, jo d'aquesta llista el 2021 va néixer per primera vegada, hi havia una vintena de restaurants, el 2022 va créixer i n'hi ha 5 o 6 més, he posat per proximitat els que estan, diguem-ne, a la zona de Catalunya, i ens trobem una mica de tots, trobem restaurants des dels Casals, per exemple, que té una estrella Michelin, trobem un restaurant com és Les Cols, que en té 2, el Celler de Can Roca, que en té 3, o en trobem un restaurant com és el Somiatruites d'Igualada, que no té cap estrella Michelin com a tal, però que la guia va voler nomenar-lo amb l'estrella Michelin verda per premiar la seva actitud envers la sostenibilitat i tot aquest tema. D'acord? Bueno, moltes gràcies.
Oh, fantastic, Jordi. Thank you very much. It was a great insight from a cook. And now we will shift from Andorra to Greece with Viv Ugani. She's the CEO at Sustainable Food Movement. She's a passionate person about sustainable gastronomy and eco-friendly practices. And she will be speaking how gastronomy is important for the tourism development of mountain tourism in Greece. And she will tell us about the Green Mountains transformation through local cuisine and sustainable food systems.
Right. Good morning. Bom dia. Kalimera in Greek. So, my name is Vi. I'm working for Sustainable Food Movement Greece, and I'm very happy to present you today 3 case studies from the regions of Crete and the regions of Epirus. 3 case studies that I believe that they can lead the sustainable mountain tourism in Greece. So it's great that we had these talks with these guys. It's amazing because one of them talked about biodiversity and food production and the quality of the food, and the other one led us all the way to consumption and how we should be ethical eaters, I would say. So, but now it's my obligation to take you back to 16th century and tell you that it's just started to be, people just started being curious about mountains only during 16th century. Then we had the English people who were interested to go for sports to mountains just on 19th century, I think. And then we had on the second half of 19th century, we had other people who were going up to the mountains for mental health treatment. And if I want to go back to my ancestors, ancient Greeks, they didn't approach mountains a lot because they were afraid of the stories and the gods and the myths and all the demons who were living up in the mountains. So for Greeks, the mountains, it's something very spiritual. It's a place where you go to find your soul. It's a place where you go to rest. It's a place where you go for your own solitude. But it didn't last that long, or maybe it lasted long, because it's only up to 1976, where with a governmental decision, we are allowed to go up to the mountains for tourism. So just 50 years ago only. And where is it? Oh no, it's over there. So, talking about mountain tourism in Greece, it's very important to mention that most of the mountain areas that we have are Natura protected areas, which is very important because the people who live there, they are not that eager to host foreigners. They are not eager to accept development of tourism on those areas. Also, we need to mention that we have 19 snow resorts. We need to mention that we have 68, as I see, mountain shelters, and we are happy to present that we have a policy act that allows villages to become touristic destinations over 3,000 feet of altitude. And this is really important because the mountains, the villages in Greece, up in the mountains, are not developed, and there is a lack of infrastructure, there is a lack of waste management infrastructure, which is a huge problem to develop tourism on those areas. And through this policy act, now things are going to be easier because the Ministry of Tourism and the Ministry of Environment and Energy will need to collaborate with regional research organizations to prove that they will be able to fund and develop those villages into touristic destinations without taking harm of the environment, which is really important because it's something that the locals are really fond of. The locals, and I can give you an example, I have a grandma, she lives up in the north of Epirus, she's nearly 100 years old, and if you talk to her about tourism, she doesn't want tourists on the village because she says two things. Oh no, I don't want them here because they leave garbage everywhere. And oh no, I don't want them here because they don't understand our food. So we have two crucial things to develop before we start investing and giving money for financial sustainability to touristic destinations. So why do we need to invest in mountain tourism? The good thing about mountain tourism is that it's an asset because you need to, and you can enjoy nature all year long. So it's different during summer, different during winter. You go there, it's a real life detox actually. For us, for Greeks, we go to the islands and, okay, you can relax by the beach, obviously, but for us, the proper detox is up in the mountains where you don't see anyone. We go to very rural areas, we go to villages where not many people live there, and we just try to be by ourselves, enjoy the nature, enjoy the food, talk to few locals, just enjoy our solitude. And this is a good reason to maintain mountain tourism. And another good reason is that because through this solitude process that you have, you can be able to enjoy the cultural heritage. And food up there in the villages is part of the cultural heritage. Apart that, you come across to locals, as you mentioned as well, and you see the process of their life, how they work, how they live, how they make their profits, how they sustain their families, how they grow up their kids, how they take care of their farms. It's different to see a farmer up in the village, up in the north of the mountain, than a farmer who lives on the valley. It's totally different aspect. And you come across to people with different needs, and then you get to know the producer, and you get to know the farmer, and you want to go back to those places just because you met a person. Just because you had eaten the best cheese up in the mountain, or you had the chance to milk goat, or I don't know, you know, just to feed the chickens. I remember when I was a kid, I was eager to go for vacation back to my grandma's because I wanted to come and see my friend, and my friend was the pig of the house. And I couldn't wait to feed the pig after the lunch we had as a big family. So it's all those experiences that I think gastronomy and food, because, you know, gastronomy is the art of providing a good food, tasty food, along with great wine in a more holistic experience. And this is, I think gastronomy is an asset for mountain tourism because it's a trend. Gastrotourism is becoming a trend lately. We talked about the producers and we talked about the connection to the farmer, and consumers, they just need to visit those places more and more. I mean, as you mentioned as well, consumers, they look for unique, authentic places to go. And as a traveler, as a consumer, wherever I want to go, I always look first where to eat, where to dine, where to drink. So even now, when I'm in Andorra, I didn't know Andorra before I come here, to be honest with you. But now I'm happy that I know it exists. It's a beautiful place to come for vacation. And I was trying to find out where to eat in Andorra, because I'm a foodie. And where to drink in Andorra as well. And I found a quite good list. It's interesting. There is a list. But if I wanted to go and look into more sustainable places, I knew that I had to go out and be a stroller and go around the city to find those places, which is good. Because I don't believe that we have to have everything on a map. I think we need to explore. We need to let ourselves and go out and explore and find and investigate and trust our guts to go and find the places where we go and we eat and dine. So this is, as I described it now, for us, this is gastrotourism as we explain it in Greece. There are people who come to Greece just for the food, just for the cuisine. They visit places just because of a cheese. For example, we have an island, Tinos, which is very popular for the cheese, and it's very popular lately because people visit that place just for the cheese production. And we're talking about mountains. Epirus is a region where people visit it just for resorts, and these resorts that I'm going to mention to you today, and just for the food that is produced there, and the hospitality, which is totally different to the Cretan hospitality, and totally different to the rest of the island hospitality. So this is unique. You travel to Greece, and you have 3 or 4 different types of hospitality. So I'm going to go back to the case studies, and before starting talking about the resorts, I need to mention that it's been announced lately by the Ministry of Tourism that they're going to invest about 43 million of euros for sustainable mountain transformation. And we are very eager to see how they're going to do that and how they're going to prove themselves sustainable, because they will need to collaborate, as I mentioned before, with the Ministry of Environment and Energy. When we're talking about sustainability, we need to stay focused on the 3 pillars, not only the financial. We need to focus on the environmental and the social as well. So I'm going to start describing the first resort, which is the Aristi Mountain Resort and Villas, and it's located in Zagori village, which is up in Epirus. It's a tiny village, part of Ioannina. You can go through the website and find out information and check out on the Google Maps where it is. So the good thing about this case study is because their vision is to accommodate anyone who is either natural discoverer or hiking lover or gastronomy addict. They just want to accommodate anyone who can enjoy a holistic experience. So from their early architectural stages, they were complied with ISO's requirements. The good thing is that they have a very green policy. They have an active green policy, and it's a resort that became really popular because of the chef who's leading the restaurant. So the chef who's leading the restaurant is one of the very well established chefs back in Athens. He's from that place. He's from Ioannina. His roots are back there. He knows exactly the local cuisine, so he tried to apply all the traditions of the cultural food heritage into the restaurant of this resort. The name of the restaurant is salvia. Salvia is an indigenous herb that you can find up in Zagori, and you can only find it there, and it's a herb that is very popular for medicinal and aromatic properties. So we have a case study here where the owners, it's a family business resort, and the owners invested to a chef who is from the region, who knows the cuisine, and they invested to someone who they knew that is so popular that he would bring people along to the resort because of his dishes and the menus. So the good thing about Aristi Resort is that it serves 4 menus. It's total seasonal. They serve only traditional local recipes. They have a greenhouse, and they are very popular for the greenhouse branch. The greenhouse is having an organic garden, a stove oven, and a patio. We need to mention that in Greece, up in the mountains, there's not a place that hasn't got a stove oven. So any house has a stove oven unless it's been renovated. And this is important because cooking in stove is totally different than using the proper equipment we have at houses. So up in the villages in Greece, they insist in keeping the stoves because of the unique flavors of the food. From Epirus and Ioannina, I'm going to take you to Crete, to Chania, and this is the oldest example we have in Greece, that we can talk about ecotourism, agrotourism, sustainability. It's the Milia Mountain Retreat and Eco Hotel. It's located up in the mountains of western of Crete. It's a 15th century house settlement, and it's all made of stone. The energy on this hotel is from, the electricity is from a renewable energy, and the water is coming from the springs of the area. So with the case with Milia is that their vision is to stay back to basics, life accommodation, philosophy, idea, whatever you call it. So they've been awarded since 2003, and they grow their own the vegetables. The apartments, the houses, are among strawberry and chestnut trees, and you cannot go by car. You have to go up to a point by car, by vehicles, and then you have to walk. So it's a kind of a retreat that you can't have a posh lifestyle. You can't. You have to be very humble, and their philosophy is to find harmony and simplicity while you are staying over there. That's why they have a very humble taverna, and the chef is a Cretan, traditional, very humble personality, easy though to approach, and they're popular for the strictly Cretan breakfast. So they use local sources, and all the producers, they are either from the nearby villages or from Chania. For example, Crete is a very big island. They don't take produce from Iraklio or from Agios Nikolaos. They take produce only from Chania, which is about 150 meters from the retreat. Last but not least, I'm going to talk about the Grand Forest, Metsovo, which is operating since 2013. This one is located on the fringe of a black pine forest in Metsovo. It's a kind of private mountain. I don't know how it became private. Maybe, I presume, according to my background as well, people in the villages, their ancestors, they gave them long areas where they can have, like to build houses or have their own farms. So I presume this area, even now it is a forest, it's private because of their previous family members. The most important thing about this resort is that they work only with locals. They give emphasis to the local community. Their staff, it's a family-run business as well, and their staff, 90% of it are either locals or from nearby places of the resort. It's a very posh resort. If you go and check the website, you'll be amazed of the facilities and stuff. They try to become sustainable. They've been awarded. They have a GSTC accreditation, and they have other accreditations as well. They have sustainability certifications. It's one of the greenest resorts we can have in the region of Epirus. And they serve a 4-season menu and destination. And what's important here to say is that apart the Millat, the Cretan case study that I gave you, Grand Forest Metsovo and the first one, the Aristi Mountain Resort, are run by popular Greek chefs. And it's important to stand here and say that gastronomy and the work that some chefs do lead the way to mountain tourism. Because, for example, those two chefs, if they didn't manage to consult those restaurants, they wouldn't bring that many people over to the area. For example, we have local Greek guides about food and where to eat and when to dine, and everyone mentions the restaurant that is run by that specific chef. So we need to give credits to the chefs because they make those destinations popular. So I'm sure that I don't need to ask, I'm sure that you would dine up in the mountains, but I'm gonna end up my presentation here and say that according to FAO, mountains attract about 20%, 15 to 20% of global tourism, and tourism has to value the natural and cultural heritage of mountains, and it's our obligation to protect the environment, protect the mountains, and respect the people who live up there, and they try to promote sustainable food systems to all and for all. We need to integrate all forest, rangeland, and other wildlife activities in such a way that we're gonna maintain the mountain ecosystem. And in terms of gastronomy, we know that it is a key asset for mountain tourism transformation, but it is impossible to do it without the local human factor. So it is impossible to do it without the trust that you need to build with the people over there, and the belief that they're gonna help you achieve this unique experience. So thank you.
So, thank you very much, Haristo. So we still have 20 minutes time left for a bit of a discussion. First of all, I have to thank the three of the speakers. I think I'm delighted of the interesting insights that you all brought to the table, and thank you the organization and UNWTO for the selection of speakers. I think we all agree that tourism has an effect on the environment, but at the same time, I think we have to be not so tough on us. Just 8% of the global emissions come from tourism. 50% out of that 8% comes from transportation. So yes, we are part of the problem, but at the same time, we can really be part of the solution, since we have the chance to educate travelers. When they come to our destinations, we have the chance to educate how to sustainably consume, for example. And that would be the first question. What do you think is a twofold question? What do you think is sustainably consumed, like food-wise? And to sustainably consume means to only eat local? Is it, how local can we get? You, ladies first.
Okay, sustainable food is not only eaten seasonal and local. There is a whole story behind this term. You need to know what you eat, the time of production, the person who makes that produce, and you need to seek for authenticity in flavors. You need to know the story behind of what you're eating. And in regards to the second part of the question, it's not cheap. Sustainable is not something cheap. It should be, but it's not, and there are many factors around it. So it's not only eating local and seasonal. It's eating like it's like eating for. It's not a lifestyle trend for sure, and it shouldn't be one, but it's something more than that. I think it's the authenticity of the experience of enjoying the produce.
What do you think about this? com vulguis.
Català.
Hold on, wait.
Wait, no problem. I wait you.
Go on.
És complicat, estic d'acord amb ella en primer lloc perquè d'entrada no és una cosa que sigui barata i de sortida hi ha un tema, vull dir, no voldria ser polèmic, però jo no sé fins a quin punt estem com a consumidors finals, parlo ja, educats per aquesta sostenibilitat. És a dir, nosaltres, per exemple, parlo del meu cas en concret, parlem d'un hotel de 5 estrelles, no? I ens situem ara mateix en el bufet d'esmorzars. Una part del bufet d'esmorzars, òbviament, té un paper molt important, la fruita. Vas allà i per anar bé trobaràs safates perfectes de síndria tallada, meló, i això, encara que no sigui potser maco de dir, tu trobes tot l'any. Vull dir, si volguéssim fer el pas cap a la sostenibilitat o cap a seguir una mica les temporades, hauríem de canviar tota aquesta fruita fixa que ara trobem sempre i tal, i que segurament moltes vegades té poc gust o no té gaire el gust que hauria de tenir per fruita de temporada. Però llavors ja fins i tot obrim l'altra finestra. Vull dir, si hem de ser sincers i parlar sense pèls a la llengua, una figa, per exemple. Una figa, quan és maca per fer-li una foto, està verda. Quan està òptima per menjar-la, ja pots córrer a fer-li la foto perquè ja se'n va. I imagina't posar-les en un bufet. Llavors, sí que és veritat que hem de començar i tot, però serà, vull dir, és una carrera de fons, hem de començar a fer passes, però no serà ràpid perquè com a consumidors finals fins i tot no estem, penso, preparats per aquest pas final.
You hear me? Yes. I think the sake for sustainability is, of course, a tough one. It has been said by everybody. For sure, the first thing we have to do is to go beyond the idea that there are food items that are good and food items that are bad. Going away from, let's say, fashion. Do you remember the goji berry? Yeah, they used to be so fashionable. Then the sustainability was about eating avocados. Then we all of a sudden realized that avocados was traveling for thousands of kilometers. Instead, we had meat that was very local, right? So sustainability is not a slogan. It requires the understanding that each supply chains, it's a matter always to look within every supply chain, and it takes time. This is why the important thing is to start working in that direction. Sustainability is something like a tension we have towards a goal. It's nobody gets 100% sustainable, or maybe just a few, but it's important to start working in that direction. Also because it's true, tourism affects, it's not that part of the problem, as you said. Food is much more. But at the same time, it is important to acknowledge that sustainability is part of the definition of quality now. You cannot escape from that. So if you as a destination don't have an answer to sustainability and sustainable strategies, you have a problem also in terms of marketing now.
We had the chance to listen to a famous chef. He also brought that parallelism of bad seasonality, good seasonality. The tourism has like a bad seasonality. You talked about Ezcarais or specific days of the years rammed with tourists. And at the same time, you brought to your restaurant good seasonality, so using ingredients from seasons. My question is now, how important are chefs, and maybe you will be the last to answer this question, how important are chefs to introduce these concepts, to educate demand, to generate new trends?
They are essential.
Mm-hmm.
They're 100% essential. If you don't have chefs that start using leftovers from meat, the less used pieces of the animals, if you don't have chefs using local beans, it's very hard. I will never succeed in having people eating what I eat. But if people see how chefs can perform sustainability, then they can be inspired in doing something at least similar at home. So yes, the role of chefs, it's so important that at Slow Food we have a Slow Food Chefs Alliance, precisely because they are incredible ambassadors for change.
It's hard. It's a tricky thing, I think, because you don't have so many educated chefs to do the job. I mean, there's a lack of education, and we have this trend about master chefs, and they're so bored to go into research, to go into deep books and philosophies about the concepts of sustainability. I mean, it's okay, it's a hands-on thing for them, but it has loads of theory. They are essential because they are, it's a trend now for consumers. They want to go and they follow chefs. They're inspired by chefs. We see that on social media, in LinkedIn, and Instagram, everywhere. But you, as a consumer, for example, I'm educated, I'm aware of sustainability, but I'm disappointed because I can't find chefs who are really sustainable. It's hard to be 100% sustainable, but what I want to say is like, I want to see the morals, the ethics behind the work. I don't want you to become sustainable and show me that you produce a menu that is sustainable just because it's in fashion, or just because it's a trend, or just because you work with a local producer. What do you do behind the local producer? Do you support your local producer, or do you take advantage of him? It's a tricky thing, but they are definitely the key players in the industry.
La cuina pot ser la cosa més sostenible o més insostenible que hi ha sobre la Terra. I això que estic dient potser és molt polèmic, però pot ser-ho. Vull dir, jo a cuines he vist tota aquesta part litúrgica que parlàvem aquí, d'agafar un pèsol i menjar-te la terra que l'envolta, com aquell que diu, i tot això és molt maco, estic totalment d'acord amb ella, però això, vull dir, jo me'n vull anar una mica ara parlant d'això a l'inici de la meva presentació. Penso que en aquests 20 anys de gastronomia els xefs, els cuiners, que és el que som, que és que no fem altra cosa, que tampoc no salvem vides ni apaguem foc, els cuiners ens hem convertit una mica en estrelles de rock. Llavors una mica també aquí ve el problema. Recau sobre cadascun com sent això. Jo, per exemple, i soc molt jove i el que vulgueu, però ho sento com una responsabilitat. Llavors, quan tens l'oportunitat de ser escoltat, tu esculls què projectes i què dius perquè t'escoltin. A partir d'aquí, cadascú té el seu tarannà i tot això. Hi ha gent que, Francis, per exemple, per mi és un exemple per molts motius, però un d'ells, per exemple, és la seva filosofia de cuina. Vull dir, Francis, en el món de la gastronomia, és un dels chefs no famós, sinó faria servir més la paraula conegut, perquè fa molt una cuina on fa servir moltes coses que són vísceres i coses així. Sí que és veritat que hi ha molta gent que això li pot crear animadversió, però és veritat que és tota una part de les nostres arrels i que abans érem així. Vull dir, al final és una mica el que diem. Si fem una mica d'introspecció, si jo ara mateix em situo a Soldeu fa 50 anys, què hi havia, què hi passava i què es menjava? Vull dir, aquesta gent d'aquí, quan queien les primeres nevades, que, bum, tot blanc, quedaven colgats. A partir d'aquí tiraven de conserves, de coses amb sal, de coses que no poguessin fer-se malbé. Doncs una mica com si ens remuntéssim a la cuina que es fa en els vaixells, cuina de mariner, perquè és el que tenen a l'abast. Vull dir, sí que és veritat, per mi els cuiners tenen un paper molt important, passa que és molt complicat, perquè vivim en un món molt mediàtic, de xarxes socials, d'egos, i llavors cadascú escull, tothom és transmissor, el que passa que després tothom escull quin missatge vol transmetre.
So last question, I think we are living the last, let's say, five years, a revolution, rather from the supply side towards sustainability, using local ingredients, recovering traditional recipes. But I still see a gap. You talked about different certifications, eco-labels and biosphere and different diplomas that you can get, even, of course, Michelin stars, Dan Barber. So we have great icons all around the globe and zero-waste chefs, but still see a gap between the supply side and the real demand. Do people, when they go to your destinations, the one you're working, for example, Michele, or when they go to Greece or those coming to Andorra, excepting you, V, that you're a foodie, in general, as a whole, is demand really driven by sustainability or more price-driven? Is it true that people are really looking for this, or is just the supply side that it's changing because of managing costs?
Ooh.
You go first.
That's a very difficult question. It doesn't have a simple answer. I think that but first of all, you mentioned about trademarks, and labels. I think we need to be very careful on labels. There are tons of labels. Of course, you have Michelin stars and others that are more established, but it's really, really hard to tell whether a label will last or not. And look also at the crisis that fair trade is having at the moment, because it was just fair, but it wasn't good. So in many cases, they need to reinvent what a label is meant for. The truth is that as I said, sustainability is a path where you need to both support the best practices you have on the ground and educate or inspire the people to recognize what quality is about and what sustainability is about. You cannot just have one of the two. That could be one of the reasons why in main tourist destinations of Greece, for instance, it is very hard to eat well, because people just come and enjoy the sunset and assume that whatever is put on their table comes from the islands of Greece, which is probably likely not true. Or same happens in Amalfi Coast and the usual big suspects you have. On the other hand, there are places that have been slowly building their public and their audience and their customers based on sustainability. I was referring a few days ago to a project that I've been visiting just 2 weeks ago, and I have met an incredible chef who has opened a restaurant where he serves just what he produces, and it's open 3 days a week. Friday evening, Saturday and Sunday, which is the dream of every chef, I guess. But he says, I am a farmer and a shepherd for 4 days, and then on Thursday, the brigade arrives, I show what we have, and we build the menu. And of course, quality there, it's very high, sustainability is very high, and people go to this valley that was largely a place for second homes, and for, I bring my groceries from the valley, I eat there, and then I travel back, so I leave nothing in that territory. Now people start and visiting the area precisely to go and dine there or enjoy some of the, let's say, lateral projects that these chefs has brought about. So it goes hand in hand.
I think it's a combination of things, and we need to look at data, consumer data, and it's definitely a thing about labeling, food labeling, and data recently shows, at least with the organizations that we work back home, because we are working with America and with New Zealand, and we have data from restaurants and hotels from there, we see a trend that consumers don't mind to pay for something that is sustainable. But there is a risky thing that sustainability might become elitist. And we don't want that to happen. And that's why we need to start investing in rural areas tourism, because there it's cheaper. And we give as well the chance to the local producers to have a higher income, and we increase social sustainability and so on. But in terms of supply chain, oh my God, there's many factors there. We're talking about politics now, and it's going to take us ages. It's a huge thing behind supply chain management and sustainability. It's another topic, another Congress, I think. So yeah, it's a lot, but I think it's a combination of things, and we need to look at what consumers really need and where do they spend their money.
És una mica el que diu ella. És complicat i ja passaríem de Congrés, perquè d'entrada hi ha diverses coses aquí. És a dir, jo penso que això que diem, que sí, cada vegada la gent mira més el tema sostenibilitat, sí, però jo penso que no ens hauríem d'enganyar, encara la gent mira el preu, perquè la massa de consumidors encara no està preparat per fer aquest salt de pagar més. Fins i tot ja no parlem ni de perquè una cosa sigui sostenible o perquè sigui millor, vull dir, la gent a vegades és certament reàcia a certes coses i si no ens trobem una mica a l'altre extrem, vull dir, anem a buscar etiqueta, anem a buscar producte sostenible, nosaltres com a establiment l'hem de pagar i com a establiment l'hem de cobrar i ho acabem fent, però això acaba reduint a una massa del turisme i llavors anem directes només a un target de persona i tampoc penso que hagi de ser el cas, vull dir, aquí darrere hi ha una feina de reflexió, fins i tot de governs i tot això, d'una mica com ens posem a treballar amb tot això, perquè sí que d'aquesta manera anem directes a un tipus de persona o gent o a un client amb un nivell adquisitiu X, però després hi ha el turisme de massa, que és castellà el nom, li hem de canviar perquè ja no sona gaire bé, que el turisme de massa és molt gran i mou moltes coses i mou molt negoci. I és aquest el que realment, buscador, on vaig al cap de setmana, filtros, ordenar por más barato. Ningú està mirant etiquetes aquí.
I think the change has started, so let's be part of it. Okay, thank you very much to the attendees. Thank you very much to the speakers for the time. Thank you.